Imagine being one of 3 brothers born minutes apart, but on your own birthday, your parents put only your brothers' names on the cake. They made you serve the guests. Then they handed you a phone and told you to take pictures of the real birthday boys. Years later, those same brothers would be serving food at my birthday dinner, while my parents stood outside my house begging me for money. My name is Ethan Carter. I was born 7 minutes after my brothers, Mason and Logan. People think being a triplet means growing up with 2 built-in best friends. For me, it meant spending my childhood wondering why I was the one nobody seemed to choose. My parents, David and Linda, adored Mason and Logan. I learned that early. When I was 13, I came home with the highest grades in my entire class. I couldn't wait to show my parents. Mom, Dad, I came first in my class. Dad barely looked at the paper. Not now, Ethan. Then Mason and Logan walked downstairs. Suddenly, my parents had all the time in the world. There are my boys. Mom hugged them. Dad asked about their grades. They had mostly BS. My parents celebrated like they'd won scholarships. I stood there holding a report card with my name at the top. Nobody even asked to see it. That was the day I stopped trying to impress them. But a few months later, they did something I would remember for the rest of my life. Our birthday arrived. Mom ordered a huge blue and white cake. Everyone gathered around when she opened the box. I stared at the icing. Happy birthday, Mason and Logan. My name wasn't there. I thought it was a mistake. Mom. She didn't even turn around. What? My name isn't on the cake. She sighed. Ethan, don't start. We have guests. Go make yourself useful. So I did. At my own birthday party, I carried drinks. I served food. I collected empty plates. Then everyone gathered around the cake. I was in the kitchen when they started singing. By the time I came outside, Mason and Logan were blowing out the candles. Logan grabbed a phone. Brothers first. For 1 second, I thought he meant all 3 of us. Then he handed me the phone. Take the picture. I stood there behind the camera while my brothers posed together. That night, Mom posted the picture online. The caption said, "Celebrating our incredible boys. Family is everything." I wasn't in the picture. I wasn't in the cake. Honestly, I wasn't sure I was even in the family. When the cake was being served, I waited until everyone else had a slice. Then I asked Mom quietly, "Can I have mine?" She looked at the empty tray. "It's finished." I said nothing. Then Grandma Ruth walked over. She had saved her own slice. "I saved this for you, sweetheart." I smiled. "Thanks, Grandma." I barely took a bite before Mason bumped my arm. My cake fell onto the patio. He laughed. "Oops." Logan pointed at the mess. "Better clean that up." I looked down at the ruined cake. Then at Grandma. She looked furious. But I cleaned it anyway. That night, while my brothers opened expensive presents downstairs, I sat alone in my bedroom. I cried quietly. Then Grandma knocked. She handed me a tiny box. Inside was a black fountain pen. Engraved across the side were 2 words. Ethan Carter. Grandma squeezed my hand. "Never forget your name," she said. "One day, everyone will know it." I didn't understand then. But she was right. High school wasn't much better. Mason and Logan became popular. They had thousands of followers. Online, our family looked perfect. But behind those pictures, my brothers called me the spare. They joked that the hospital had accidentally sent home the wrong baby. Everyone laughed. I didn't. Writing became my escape. During junior year, I wrote a story about a perfect family whose beautiful online pictures hid an ugly truth. My English teacher loved it. A girl named Maya Reynolds did too. She told me, "You should publish your writing." So I created an anonymous account called The Invisible Boy. I wrote about feeling unseen. About families that loved appearances more than people. Within weeks, everyone at school was reading it. Only Maya knew it was me. She didn't expose me. She simply said, "I see you." Those 3 words changed everything. Then came senior year. One night, I discovered Mason had obtained the answers to an upcoming chemistry exam. I photographed the evidence and anonymously reported it. The school investigated. Mason was caught. But when my parents found out I'd reported him, they didn't blame him. They blamed me. "You betrayed your brother," Dad said. "He cheated." Mom snapped. "Your brothers give us something to be proud of. All you do is cause problems." Something inside me finally broke. I finished first in my class. I write for the school magazine. I've never cheated. What exactly do I have to do before you're proud of me? Silence. Then Dad said something I'll never forget. "Pack your things." I was 18, terrified, heartbroken. And that night, I left my parents' house with 2 bags. Grandma took me in. For the first time, home felt like home. I went to Ohio State. I studied journalism and English. I kept writing. The invisible boy grew. Eventually, I revealed my identity. My writing opened doors. Years of rejection, cheap apartments, terrible internships, and hard work eventually led to a career I loved. By my late 20s, I had become the managing editor of a major digital publication. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. But I had built a life nobody could take away from me. Meanwhile, Mason and Logan's perfect image collapsed. Mason's cheating scandal followed him. Neither brother finished college. My parents' business struggled. Their house disappeared. Their vacations stopped. And then came my 30th birthday. Maya and Grandma organized a private dinner for me. I walked into the restaurant smiling. Then I looked up. One of the servers was Logan. A moment later, Mason appeared carrying another tray. We stared at each other. The 2 brothers who once made me photograph them at my birthday were now serving food at mine. I didn't laugh. I didn't insult them. I didn't need to. Later that night, I stood in front of everyone. Maya looked confused. I got down on one knee. "Maya Reynolds, you were one of the first people who ever saw me when I felt invisible. Will you marry me?" She said yes. Everyone cheered. And across the room, my brothers watched. For once, I wasn't behind the camera. I was the person everyone was celebrating. But the real ending came a few days later. My doorbell rang. It was my parents. They stood on my porch looking older, tired, and desperate. Mom smiled. "My baby." I almost laughed. Dad told me they'd heard about my success. "We're proud of you, son." At 13, those words were everything I wanted. At 30, they meant nothing. Because then they told me why they'd come. They were drowning in debt. They needed money. "We're family," Mom cried. "We need you." I looked at them. And for a moment, I remembered that birthday. The cake without my name. The slice Grandma saved. The presents I never received. The night Dad told me to leave. Then I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I simply didn't owe them my future. "You had years to treat me like your son," I said. "You don't get to remember I'm family because you need something from me." Dad stared at me. "So you're just going to let your parents struggle?" "No," I said. "I'm just not going to sacrifice myself to fix what I didn't break." Then I closed the door. Inside, Maya took my hand. On my desk sat Grandma's old fountain pen. The engraving was worn, but my name was still there. Ethan Carter. And that's when I finally understood what Grandma had given me all those years ago. She hadn't just given me a pen. She gave me proof that I mattered. My parents left my name off a birthday cake. My brothers treated me like I was invisible. But I didn't spend my life trying to make them regret it. I simply built a life where their approval stopped mattering. That was my revenge. Not watching them fall. Not destroying them. But becoming someone who no longer needed them to see my worth. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't making people suffer. It's becoming so at peace with yourself that you no longer care whether they finally realize what they lost.